Greetings, everybody. It's March the 3rd, past midnight. I'm trying to do this video uh, on a subject that I like to talk about because when you rely on the mainstream media, all you get is completely false information, uh, total disinformation. And so that's mainstream media. I needn't tell you. And nothing but there's not even an iota of truth in what they're saying about what's going on in Ukraine. Uh, and it's all diabolic lies. That said, quickly, what's happening in Ukraine right now? Ukraine is almost annihilated. And of course, Putin was people say Putin was dragging it, but he was slow walking because he didn't want to destroy the country. He wanted the country and didn't want the people to suffer. If you closely uh, watch what's been going on in the past year, and the American media conveniently tried to twist it around and say Putin was losing the war. No, Putin did not even consider Ukraine as a formidable opponent, and he didn't want to. Wars are evil, and no matter which way you approach, there is a countless helpless, innocent human lives going to be lost, right? And so you cannot have a war and at the same time save innocent people. Just so that's why we all concede that wars are evil. And that said, Putin was, like I said, he was slow walking because he didn't want to destroy the infrastructure, and you know he didn't want to destroy the lives of innocent people. But then it came to a point. Uh, what U.S. the U.S. It was U.S. against Russia. U.S. It's what you call the proxy war. You get uh, a person to fight your war, and it's like it's more Machiavellian, where you assign somebody to do the dirty business, and when things come to light, you you throw them in jail or you hang them, because you are the government. So what US did was, US and Russia in the past, so many proxy wars, no direct confrontation, but usually US is behind uh, uh, whenever there is some military conflict, and the opposing side, the US will pump all the weapons and the money and the wherewithal to fight Russia. I mean, it's just happened in when Russia occupied Afghanistan for 10 years. US created Bin Laden, and similarly, you can think of so many other examples, right? And wherever US, this sounds harsh, but it's the stubborn truth. Wherever US, whenever US gets involved, that country is doomed. Uh, Either by way of, not necessarily militarily, even otherwise, under the pretext of infiltrating a country to help that country from saving the country uh, from economic disaster. US would go in, and then the country is doomed. You can look at Venezuela, so many other countries in South America, and all these Latin countries. No need to go there, right? And so what happened in Ukraine? Ukraine was in after the just trying to be without going into details. After the Second World War, uh, you know the the Allied forces were fighting uh, J- the Nazi Germany, and Russia was fighting the Nazi Germany from the other side. U.S. lost close to 2 million people, uh, and the Nazi Germany, it is reported that about 7.5 million compared to US and all the Allied forces. Uh, I think that together, all the Allied forces together, US, they lost no more than 2 million from what when I check statistics. And how many uh, how many human lives did Russia lose? Approximately 27 to 28 million. Now, compare 20, take a conservative number, compare even 25 million to 2 million. You know whose contribution is greater in the second war, the victory of Second World War. But the historians, the Western historians, would not even would you know would relegate the Russian contribution in the victory of Second World War. Well, that's the way it goes. It's propaganda. Everybody likes to paint a glorious picture of themselves, right? And the facts tells us otherwise. So anyway, coming back to Ukraine, after the Second World War, what happened there? The U.S. formed the NATO alliance. Uh, to begin with, there were 12 nations after the war. They came together. Of course, they were bound by the agreement if one nation were to be attacked by an enemy power, all these NATO nations will come together defending their friend. It's more like a gang. So, putting it in simple language. I'm the gang leader. You are my members. We stick together. If one of us were attacked by another gang, we all come together and we go against that gang, right? So that's just in simple terms. So, and in it, there's so much to it. And after the war, Saudis had Saudi economy was very badly affected because the extended war, the Second World War, lasted over 6 years, and because of that, the pilgrims were not able to uh, come to Saudi Arabia, to Mecca, Medina, whatever, and so that affected Saudi economy. How so? Because the national revenue of Saudi government, largely said to be more about 50% at the time, comes from the pilgrims, pilgrimages undertaken by the Islamic countries, people from Islamic countries to come to Saudi Arabia. Now that stopped because of the World War. So Saudis were, it affected their economy seriously. That's when they say American oil cartels moved there and tried to promise the Saudis that they would help them and develop their infrastructure and the oil industry, and the American oil cartels were very much part and parcel of the Saudi oil industry. And today, Saudis do not want Americans. They don't even want to take them. See, when the American President Biden calls, the Saudis don't even want to answer the call. That's how things have changed. Of course, Saudi is now fully developed, and the American cartels made, you know, colossal amounts of money, and all that apart. In 1971, we had Richard Nixon as American president. So what Richard Nixon did, he decided to shift the American national treasury was going into debt, so he decided to shift uh, from the gold standard to an oil-based economy. So that's henceforth uh, the oil and the petroleum was referred to as black gold. a country that has a country that is rich in oil and petroleum controls the world, will become a big economy in the world, because without oil, without petroleum, without oil and gas, nothing happens unless you want to go back to the times of horse and carriage. But in the last over 100 years, everything is oil based industry. So that's what happened there. So now what happened? Uh, Richard Nixon persuaded the Saudis to sell their oil only in American dollars. Only, yeah. So you pay American dollars no matter what country you are. You want to import Saudi oil, you have to buy the oil in American dollars. So American dollar became the reserve currency, meaning all the foreign currencies around the world is based off American currency. So the banking system is controlled by the Americans, and that affected Russia. Russia is a very rich country, probably you can say the second or at least second or third richest in the world, especially in oil and gas. And they have they don't their oil is what you call the natural uh, gas and oil, which is so different from the petroleum. Uh, Petroleum, it takes so much money. Like Canada is a probably the biggest petroleum producing country, but to purify the petroleum, it costs so much money. It's the same thing with U.S. But in Middle East, it just oozes out. Again, it's petroleum, but there's hardly any purification required. But in Saudi, uh, they take it from the the sea, the ocean, and the oil is said to be not petroleum oil. It's pure oil, which is pure oil and gas, which is not. Uh, See, the petroleum oil emits carbon monoxide, which is bad for your health. It's bad for the atmosphere. It contributes towards global warming. Global warming is another whole issue, and but the human contribution is a small percentage of it, unlike they make it out to be. Because the planet itself is not in the same uh, place where it going around the orbit, right? They say the astrophysicists and scientists would say it's an ever expanding universe. Nobody knows where we were like 5 years ago, 50 years ago. But so it's just inevitable global warming. But there is a group who try to make trillions of dollars scamming the world with global warming. That's another issue, though a very, very can it's a subject that could be disputed very much, and don't want to go there. And so this is what happened there. And so Russia didn't at the time of early, I guess, 70s. They didn't have the resources or the infrastructure to drill the oil uh, wells or the oil reserves in the sea. That said, Russia was struggling because the US was controlling the banking system. The simple way to illustrate this is, let's say you're a farmer and you have a huge land. You produce a lot, your your harvest, you produce you every year. You have so much, but what if you cannot take it to the market to sell? And you're prevented by the competitor to bring your produce to the market. And whatever you produce, whatever you harvest, you cannot make money out of it, and everything is going to go waste. So that's what happened with Russia. Russia is a very oil rich country, and they were struggling because whatever other natural resources they have, uh, wheat or whatever, corn, what they couldn't sell it. right? And the banking system was controlled by US. And Federal Reserve controls the US bank. It just says it sounds as though it's a government entity. It's not a government entity, unlike most people are misled to believe. Federal Reserve is a private corporation and controlled by the American oligarchs. They're not even billionaires, but they're trillionaires. They are dynasties, and you can read it up on the subject. So this is what happened to Russia, and Russia became dead broke, and uh, Gorbachev, the General Secretary of Soviet Union, at that time it was 15 countries, 14 countries together with Russia, the Soviet Union. When he was pushed to a corner, Ronald Reagan conveniently used him to break up Soviet Union. And upon the disintegration of Soviet Union in 1991, a summit meeting was held in the island of Malta in Europe, and Ronald Reagan did not attend the meeting. It was his vice president George Bush Senior, who has been in the early 60s. He was the CIA chief. Later, he became the vice president and president. I'm talking about the senior Bush, and so he was Ronald Reagan's VP. He attended the conference, the meeting or the summit with Gorbachev, and Gorbachev raised a pertinent question: what is the guarantee that we are willing to give? We are willing to go in the direction of uh, disintegrating the Union, Soviet Union. So all these countries, 14 countries with us, will be given independence. But what is the guarantee when we are weakened that the NATO forces will not expand and pose a grave threat to our security? So, and when he raised this question, George Bush Senior, uh, gleefully promised, "Don't you worry, it will never happen. We give you the promise. U.S. will not expand the NATO to your detriment." But did they keep the promise? No. From 12 nation NATO, today it is said to be 32 countries in the NATO. I looked it up. I saw the names of 30 countries. I do not know what the other two countries were not listed there. But at any rate, so 32 countries. Did they stop there? They are encroaching into the Russian backyard and the front yard. They want their naval base there, US, the NATO forces. Do you think Russia should just sit silently and do nothing and let them walk all over them, right? Uh, See, when in 2014, see, Ukraine, there is the Ukrainian population, and there is also Russian population. So there is a certain enmity between two ethnic groups. And in 2014, Putin invaded or took over Crimea, not without a reason. If you go back in the history, I think before 1955, it was a Russian part of Russia, and then whatever happened, it just was became part of Ukraine, and it's a Russian populated territory. What the NATO forces, US was trying to do is take all the naval base, their warships, and just you know berth all their naval fleet uh, in uh, in the in the Crimean waters. So that's a huge threat to Russia. So Russia invaded Ukraine, but Russian excuse was Russia invaded Crimea. Russian excuse was it's a Russian populated territory, and they are being uh, discriminated or ill-treated, so we are going to annex. So be it. But the actual reason was the US, what US was trying to do, the NATO forces. That's in 2014. That subsided, but in 2019, what happened? We had a clown. When I say clown, he was a TV teleserial and teleserial artist by the name Vladimir Zelensky. Today, now he's the president of Ukraine. He was then 2019. He was a teleserial actor, and the teleserial program was Servant of the People. The story, or the whatever the is about story on the telecasted or televised was about an ordinary school teacher who defies all the ruling forces and eventually becomes the Russian president. Supposed to be an interesting teleseries, teleserial drama, and it was broadcasted all over Ukraine, I guess, for years, and and it it was very popular with the people, and because it talks about how an ordinary person becomes the Ukrainian president, fighting for the justice. So who was behind promoting this tele serial drama? Uh, it was an oligarch said to be the second richest in Ukraine, by the name Io Kolomoisky. Kolomoisky, right? He is originally from Israel, uh, and he had a bone to pick with Putin in 2014 when Crimea was invaded. This man, Kolomoisky, his properties were seized by Putin. He even, in fact, they say they had a civil airport, a private airport in Crimea. It was all nationalized when Putin took over Crimea. So obviously, he had a bone to pick with the Russian president. He he felt that Vladimir Putin, Vladimir Zelensky, present day president of Ukraine. Zelensky was a tele-serial artist, a comedian. His teleserial drama called The Servant of the People uh, is he needs if promoted, it would be a good way to win the favor of the people, and it was televised, broadcasted, and telecasted all over, and it became very popular teleserial drama, and people identified justice of Ukraine with this comedian clown Zelensky, and the money was playing a big part of it. And without money, nobody can win an election. Without the oligarchs, without the financial establishment, nobody can win, become the leader, unless they have the money themselves, like Donald Trump. And you know what they did to Donald Trump, because he went against the financial establishment and the corrupt system. Well, that's another whole topic. We'll stick to what happened in Ukraine. So this Zelensky, the TV comedian, become the president, and corrupt as ever. He is today, I'm sure, he made his money for the, I guess, to belong to the billionaire club of the world, and Americans were pumping the money and the weapons, and the American government was doing. Of course, we have Trump refused to do it, even though Zelensky visited the White House and trying to cozy up with Trump. Trump sort of kept, kept him at bay. But Putin, who should be in a geriatric center, the probably the most corrupt U.S. politician and president ever, senile as ever, decided. But of course, he has a lot of past involvements and business, corrupt business with him, his son, and himself, both countries, China and Ukraine, so many other countries as well. So he decided to, and Russia is a threat. He decided to, I don't know how much they say, 80 billion or I don't know, 200 billion. It's just uh, a colossal amount of money and weapons to Ukraine. So what happened? Putin was slow walking, so to speak, and they in America they broadcasted saying Putin is losing the war. Putin is losing the war. It's taking. It should not take this for 1 year. He was just taking it slow because he didn't want to destroy the country. Now he lost control, and he was giving the time for the people to evacuate, and people are passionate and their emotions are induced by the ruling politicians, and people are foolish when they are driven by passions and emotions. When your passions and emotions work, your brain doesn't work. And patriotism is one such passion where you would do crazy things for your country. Patriotism is not a bad thing, but an emotion becomes a passion is, you know I don't know, you make the decision, or you make you're free to think uh, what is right and wrong. So that's what happened today. The country of Ukraine is completely, totally close to annihilation. See, and they don't have soldiers now. They are forcibly conscripting teenagers and elderly retired men. And I think last night I saw this the unit commander of the Wagner forces, or the Wagner, you know, I guess Wagner. Uh, I guess how do you say it? It's just military units that I could be wrong, comparable to the Navy SEALs of United States. It's a Russian force. Eventually, now they are you know the Wagner groups, or the Wagner fleet is there in the front, and the unit commander is saying, "We don't have soldiers fighting us. It's always it's now we are confronted with young teenagers and elderly men, and we don't want to fight. We are giving time for them to leave the war front and you know evacuate." And feeling sympathetic. Why would you kill young children, young men, and elderly retired men, right? So that's where they are, where it is now in Ukraine. But who is the culprit in this? Nobody would say it, but US is the culprit. And who is the sacrificial lamb? It's uh, it's Ukraine. But the president of Ukraine, he cares two hoots for his country and his people, right? People are misled. This is what happens in the world. Unfortunately, the truth hurts and truth offends you, but regardless, that is the truth, right? And there are one or two people who from American military who held American high portfolios in the military, coming out and speaking openly. There is one gentleman. He has been a colonel. I don't want to mention his name because I don't want YouTube to think that I'm promoting them. So I rather not. But listening to him was an eye opener, and kudos to him. At least there are people like him who would come out and openly speak the truth without fear of repercussions. And the people, the general public, completely in the dark, and they don't care. They put their self-interest. That's human nature. As long as it happens in another country, they don't care, provided it doesn't happen in their backyard. When it happens in their Neighborhood, backyard, it's a personal situation. Thank you for listening, and all the very best to everyone.